The new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. For this meeting, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted to the town's web meeting calendar and the Conservation Commission agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to share a screen of your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that are provided to members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. This meeting will feature public comment. After commission members and staff members discuss each project application on the agenda, the chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted via roll call of the members. I'll confirm which members are present. Ed Harrow.
Present.
Jim Cirillo.
Present.
Ted Barker Hook.
Ted is present.
And I am present, obviously. And I'll confirm staff that are present. Judy Day.
Present.
Anna Rogers.
Present.
And Joe Orzel.
Present.
All right, great. So it sounds like we're going to jump right in. We're going to skip over the Toll Brothers discussion as their representative had to jump to a different call. We'll come back to that. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the draft minutes from December 17th, 2024?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion if there are no comments on those minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Do a roll call vote. Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ted?
Ted is an aye.
And I am an aye. All right, great. So let's jump into documents for review. 37 Oakhurst Road enforcement order. Judy, do you mind giving us a quick update and sharing what you have?
Yep, through the chair. So at the commission's last meeting, you all decided to ask the homeowner to file an NOI for after the fact work in jurisdiction. So again, this was work on a retaining wall, hardscaped patio, and dock without an order of conditions in around Lake Maspinock. So the original enforcement order asked the homeowner to come with a sketch and be prepared to discuss next steps for permitting. And the most recent ask from the commission is for the homeowner to file for an after the fact notice of intent. So revise the enforcement order to request that completed NOI application be submitted by the deadline submission for the July 1st meeting. And there were some additional stabilization that had been requested that I included in there as well. So looking for any comments or edits to this document or a vote to issue.
I do not have any comments on the document. Any other commission members?
No comment. Mostly with this evening.
Judy, do you have a sense from the applicant that they'll be able to meet that deadline?
So I did tell him after the commission spoke 2 weeks ago that this is what they were looking for. So he's at least had that 2-week head start to hopefully get in touch with someone. I have not received any indication on progress, however.
Okay. I think we keep the date as you have it proposed in hopes that the filing occurs. But if it doesn't occur by that date, I think I speak for everyone that we would like to at least see some documentation of progress. So if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to issue.
I'll make a motion to
I'm-
issue the
I'll
certificate.
second. I'll second.
Quick roll call vote. Ed,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Ted is an aye.
and I am an aye. Thank you, Judy. All right, let's jump down to 32 Granite Street, request for certificate of compliance. This one looks like an oldie but a goodie. Going back many, many years based on that file number. You mind giving us a
Still another record though.
summary, Judy?
You got it. Still another record.
Through the
You gotta
chair.
go back to-
Yes,
You want me to give an overview?
that would be great. Yes.
Sure. So looking to close out an order from 1986 for the original construction of a single family house, associated items such as septic and driveway as well. Original order was never closed out. Joe did a walk of the site, and there are just a few outstanding items to discuss. So happy to run through those, unless Joe, you would prefer to present the outstanding items that you have for the commission.
I can certainly do that. So the revised materials included the missing information on the Form 8A and on the as-built plan, the revisions that we had recommended. The remaining items from our review memo really are those that were recommended for discussion by the commission, and included the following. Comment 3B was regarding the existing yard being much closer to the wetland than the order of conditions approved limit of work. Comment 2C was regarding the deck that was constructed at the rear of the house, which was not originally approved under the order of conditions, but was subsequently approved by the commission as a replacement for the dock that had been for the deck that had been built there previously. And then comment 3E was regarding the driveway configuration being somewhat different than was on the approved plan, with the garage being changed from a side load to a front load. And it looks like the overall area of the driveway is maybe a little bit less than what was approved, but it looks like it's a little bit closer to the wetland in that southeast or southwest corner of the property. Those are the only outstanding items as far as I'm aware.
Great. Thank you, Joe. So this one goes back decades. It looks like going close to 40 years from when this original order was issued. And I think it's important to note that that would have occurred prior to our current or any prior iteration, as far as I'm aware, of our wetland bylaw and regulations. So while it's, certainly disappointing that the lawn encroached beyond what was approved, working under slightly different regulations than what we're dealing with today. So from my perspective, I don't think any of the changes that have occurred are substantial enough to request much more than the installation of PIBs along the tree line so that that lawn doesn't further encroach into the resource area, into the buffer zone that we have jurisdiction over. That said, we'd welcome any thoughts from other commission members.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
I'm in agreement with that. I do think this is too bad, but there were no PIBs required at the time that this was approved. I was just leafing through the photos. The shed looks like it's in good shape. It's not a shed that's falling down. Is the treehouse in good shape? I didn't see a photo of it, and I stop looking so I can engage the conversation?
I can answer that question if I may. Baruch Shagopi, I'm the surveyor for Cornerstone. I prepared this plan. The treehouse is in good condition. It's been maintained and it's not falling down or anything. It's safe and in decent condition, yes.
Yeah, so I guess the only slightly sticky thing is, do the PIBs go behind the treehouse? Do they go in front and we allow the treehouse to stay? Do they go in front of the shed? I don't know what is best or what is feasible. I don't know if a PIB hidden behind a shed accomplishes anything anyway. But generally, yeah, I agree with Matt that this just got away from Hopkinton, not even us, from people generations ago, a long time ago. So yeah, my only point of discussion is, where does the PIB go near the shed and the treehouse, which isn't much discussion, but that's where I land.
Yeah, my sense, Ted, is we'd look for a PIB somewhere to the west of the existing well that's in the wood line there. And then follow that tree line around towards the front of the property. I think from that picture we just saw the treehouse, it looks like there is actually a tree just to the left, based on that view, that's sort of behind the treehouse, that looks like it's primed for a PIB. That would be visible. Yeah, exactly, that one right there. So that the future landowners understand that, you know, there should not be any further encroachment into the tree line without coming to the commission.
And I'm sorry, Matt, where's the well? I'm looking on my plan on my tablet. I can't find, I see a fire pit.
Yeah, so right behind the shed, you can see this.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see.
Pardon my ignorance. I'm not familiar with your acronyms. PIBs, are we talking conservation markers?
Yeah, it's a permanent immovable barrier. Basically, it's a little 4-inch placard that we request be mounted to trees or fences or other, you know, immovable barrier.
Understood.
So that moving forward, further encroachments into jurisdiction don't occur without coming to us first.
Understood. Thank you.
And they can be picked up at the town offices. Judy and or Anna can provide those at no cost.
Excellent. Okay.
Jim or Ed, any thoughts or comments?
I do not.
So I think at this point I'd entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance with the condition, and I know we can't really write that in, but the expectation that the landowner or their representative hang PIBs along the tree line and work with either Judy or Anna to identify those locations. We typically look for like 40 to 50 feet on center. So in this case, we're probably looking at about 8 PIBs along the tree line.
Through the chair.
Yes, Judy.
If you'd like, what we can commonly do is commission can vote to issue the COC, and then we'll wait until we have confirmation that the PIBs are in place to actually give it in hand.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
That's exactly what I was about to ask about.
Yeah, once you've confirmed they're up, then you can.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, what kind of confirmation do you need? You want an updated plan or just a letter from myself or our project engineer?
Usually we ask for an updated as-built and either photo documentation, or we're happy to come out ourselves to confirm.
All right, we can provide that.
If you're still looking for a motion, I'll make the motion.
Through the chair, can we add a staff signature to that motion?
Oh, Matt,
Ed, are you good with that amendment?
Am I? Yes.
Wonderful.
I will second Ed's amendment with the addition of signatures.
Quick roll call. Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ted?
Ted is an aye.
And I am an aye.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I am not seeing representatives for, oh, no, Rich is back. Rich, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
No problem. I'm surprised you were able to jump back so quickly.
Yes, well, I was surprised too. The Lexington is flying through their hearings tonight, which is unusual. If you'd like to talk about Newberry Glen, I also have project engineer Austin Turner from Bowler on the line. He helped design the project with Toll and has been providing assistance with the SWIP and other project elements as we've responded to this notice of violation.
Great.
So
Thank you, Rich.
if I could share my screen.
Yeah, let me get it started. If Judy, if you don't mind, just for everyone's benefit, can you just give us a real high level summary of the observations that were made that resulted in issuance of this notice?
Sure. Through the chair, my pictures. Yep. So Anna and I, last Friday, May 9th, went out to the site and observed significantly turbid water leaving the off-site basins on Blueberry and continuing to resource areas downstream. This one was a little bit different from past violations. So we noticed that the large basin across from the entrance to Fitch wasn't as dirty as the water coming off of it. Prevailing theory might be that there was some kind of blowout in the pipe that leads out of the main basin and into the channel that leads to the smaller basin and further downstream. Went back later that day and the turbidity had started settling out, but I think we're concerned about sort of the stability of the berm, as well as, you know, the significant amount of water that's in that basin putting additional pressure on the system. Have some pictures. We went out today and they were pumping out of this basin into a dewatering bag. So those are some updates that we've had since the violation. And I believe Rich has some sort of short and long-term strategies he wants to run by the commission.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, Rich, we're happy to hear those.
Sure. If I could share my screen.
Sure. All right, you should be good to go.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay. So just to kind of start high level and get pretty detailed, this is Blueberry Lane here. And this is a March 2005, so 6 weeks ago, aerial image of the development. This is Fitch. And then this is Myrtle over here. And so we're going to focus on this area of interest, which the next slide will zoom in. The next few slides actually will zoom into that area. So here we have the project site. Stormwater runoff from the project site enters infrastructure, which discharges into this offsite basin. I'm calling it offsite basin number 1. That's the basin that we were talking about. It has some Phragmites in it. And there is a short section of drain pipe with a manhole right in the middle, and water from this basin discharges to a stormwater ditch. It's a man-made stormwater ditch that's lined with stones and contained within relatively steep embankments. That stormwater ditch flows into a second offsite basin, which is the grassy basin, appears to be regularly mowed. And then water from that basin discharges to a 12-inch outlet pipe at a concrete head wall, enters the drainage system associated with Blueberry Lane, and discharges to another culvert at a head wall. And then that's the point at which we have our intermittent stream that becomes jurisdictional. So just to sort of refresh everyone's recollection of what's going on out here. We did meet with the contractor on Monday morning, the 12th, and along with Austin Turner from Bowler to sort of talk through and try and figure out what's going on out here. Because as Judy and Anna had indicated, much of the water in this basin, the water in this basin was relatively clear. The valve was off. We've been doing a great job at managing the offsite runoff coming from this site. The contractor that we were struggling with previously has been fired and replaced with a new contractor that we've had great experience with on this and several other toll projects over the spanning a decade. So I am quite confident in this contractor's ability. And so I think we've been doing a good job at managing the runoff from the site. That said, during the middle of a inch-plus storm event, May 9th, May 10th, we did have this turbid water. And I think what happened is that there are some issues with the grout and sealing of the pipe that occurs between the outlet control structure at this pond edge and the drain manhole that's in the middle. And so water is bypassing the valve, which obviously was shut. It was closed during this rain event because we didn't want any turbid water leaving the site. And the water is flowing through the stone, presumably around the gravel. And I think what happened was that water excavated a void, if you will, in the earth adjacent to the stone that surrounds the pipe. And that that earth was then pushed through the stone and entered the system. I think Judy and Anna were out there shortly after this happened and saw it and went to go get the contractor. And my understanding is by the time they walked back to this area with the contractor, the water flowing through the stormwater ditch had cleared up pretty significantly. So this seems to be an episodic event and not something that occurred, hours or days or something like that. On Monday morning, the water was very clear flowing through this entire system. So we talked with the contractor. They need to get in there and make the repairs and make it right and do it correctly. They need about a week to do this work, and they need a week with a little bit of rain is fine, but if we get rain events, that's going to be an issue. So we're in the process of cleaning the water in this stormwater basin, pumping it out, making sure that we can get the water levels down. And we're looking at the weather. Hopefully this can be done within the next 4 weeks and this can be repaired properly. In the meantime, and frankly, going forward until the project is complete, we are going to implement these additional redundant measures to further protect this resource area, the intermittent stream and the adjacent wetlands. We're going to do a few things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to install 5 18-inch diameter core log check dams in the stormwater ditch. We're also going to install another much more significant check dam at the basin number 2. And I have photographs of this in subsequent slides that I'll share with you. We're then going to install, or rather, we're going to plug the basin 2 outlet. And we found a plug system that has a 4-inch bypass opening, which will allow the contractor to install a valve, an elbow. We can put a skimmer on it. Lots of flexibility with this device that will be used to block this. But most importantly, if we have issues during this work or subsequently, we can shut this off, and that will eliminate the potential for turbid water to enter the downstream resources. We are going to put flock logs down gradient of these check dams. We'll consult with Hydrograss Technologies to confirm the type of flock logs that needs to be installed. Here are some details about what this is all going to look like. So this is a representative image of the 18-inch diameter core log check dam. This is a view looking from the head wall south through the stormwater ditch that connects basin number 1 to basin number 2. So we're going to have the core log. We're going to remove the stones within the channel footprint, in the footprint of where this core log will go. So we maximize contact with the bottom of the core log to the bottom of the channel. It'll be installed with 4-foot oak stakes, at least 8 per core log, and the core log will extend up the slope and sort of curve perpendicular to the direction of flow. And then we have the flock logs here on the down gradient side. There will be 5 of these. And here's just a sort of representative image of what that is sort of going to look like. Secondly, this is a view, if you have the grassy basin behind you that holds water, this is a view of the drainage channel that flows toward the 12-inch culvert pipe, which is right here. In this area, we are going to stack 3 18-inch diameter core logs. We're going to stake them in place with the oak stakes and have metal strapping to keep everything in place. And this will effectively provide a little bit of a damming function to hold back additional water within this basin. And these are what those core logs might look like. You know, this is obviously retaining an area of restoration, but, you know, we have the stacked core logs with the metal strapping, just so you can see what that would look like. This is a representative image of one of the plugs that are available. This goes into the 12-inch opening. It's sealed off, but it has a 4-inch bypass valve. It can be pulled in an emergency if need be, but the site contractor found this and is confident that they'll be able to have a lot of flexibility and put an elbow on it, as I've schematically drawn here, if need be. We can add a skimmer to it, etc. But most importantly, it allows us to effectively turn off the flow to the down gradient resource areas. So, you know, roughly 30 feet long, this check dam will be a minimum of 14 stakes with the metal strapping. This will all be implemented as soon as possible. The contractor's in the process of sourcing some of these materials that need to be installed. And it will be installed to protect the downstream resource areas while this pipe connection is repaired and reinstalled in a proper way. And then also for the duration of construction. And that's part of the reason that we're choosing the 18-inch core logs instead of typical 12-inch compost sock, because, we want this to last and be formidable when it comes to protecting those downstream resource areas. So with that, I'm happy to turn it back to the commission. Again, Austin Turner from Bowler Engineering is here. If you have technical questions or want to talk more about things related to the engineering of the site.
Great. So thank you, Rich. I do have a couple of questions and some thoughts. I'll start with questions based on the presentation we just saw. So it's great that you're proposing some additional kind of down gradient measures to minimize sediment reaching the resource areas. From what I've observed out in this area of town is there's some very shallow groundwater, and there's what appears to be substantial base flow entering these basins. And from what I've been told from site visits done by Judy and Anna over the prior months, those basins continue to be full of water. So what that tells me is it's great that we're putting Ella controls in, but all it's really doing is staging up that water so you have less storage when the rain events come along. So in terms of putting these check dams in the ditch and down in that second basin, how do you envision those functioning if you have consistent base flow and you're losing that volume by just increasing the discharge elevation?
Sure. So the check dams within I think there's enough pitch in that stormwater ditch for the check dams are really intended to just slow the movement of water down, allow the flocculant to work, and for the fines to settle out as best they can as it, cascades over those check dams through that 150, 200 foot long stormwater ditch that's there. The check dam at the grass basin number 2, that's really intended to provide storage that we need. When the water is clear, we're going to allow that water to flow out of that grass basin and into the downstream wetlands as it typically does. But it gives us an opportunity and a way to hold the water back if we need to in the event of a sediment release.
Matt, hey, it's good to see you, man.
Thank you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So this is Austin for the record with Bowler. So I think part of what you're getting at too is that outlet control structure that's in there now was put in there intentionally to allow Toll Brothers to have more control over the water levels in the basin. And frankly, to allow when we get storm events or back-to-back storm events like we had over the recent weeks, allow that pond to fill up and take advantage of its volume and allow the sediment to settle out. it's actually working the way it's intended. And we acknowledge there's, contributing base flow here, the groundwater just kind of wicking into the basin. The pond is doing what it's supposed to do. And as Rich alluded to earlier, the team that's out there now is very, very diligent about the erosion controls. And that pond looked great. What happened ultimately is that the grouting and the connection from the pipe to the manhole got compromised, and the water used that as a soft spot to wick through. It pulled all that stuff through. So what they're doing right now is trying to keep the water in that basin. When we were out there, you could see it slowly filling up because it was getting water, that kind of lag that pushing through the system, and they're recirculating it. They don't need it to be fully dry. They're acknowledging and are aware there'll probably be some continued base flow condition. They just got to let the water and the volume that got put into that basin from this recent storm event to abate to the point where they can work with it, let it settle out, let it become a little bit less turbid. And then what they're planning on doing is kind of like a surgical procedure where they basically cut into that berm, put an anti-seep collar on it, let that pipe stop wicking the water through it to a point where it's manageable, and then regrout it. And they can do that while that pond still has water. It needs to go down substantially, but they're not worried about that base flow contribution because they can manage it. Right now, the volume in that pond is significant enough where they can't work with it and do that kind of surgical procedure on the anti-seep collar. So we talked to them a little bit about that on Monday, and they're prepared for it. They just need about a week, they think, for this thing to abate enough where they can get in there and do it properly. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that answers part of the question. Yeah, I mean, in this particular instance, this notice appears pretty clear to me that it's a result of that erosion in the berm and the release of that sediment. The challenge we have is we've had several notices of violation during construction. So we're trying to manage not only this particular case, but also what we've seen previously and why the applicant's been back in front of us on several occasions. So I agree the basins are generally working the way they're intended to. And the fact that the outlet control structures were modified to provide that additional volume is great. That's really important. What I've seen on a couple of occasions and what's been reported to us is that the basins remain full of water and they're not being necessarily dewatered down between storm events to provide that volume on a consistent basis, where if it's full, you don't have that volume anymore. And we understand there's been a number of temporary sediment traps kind of put in place within the footprint of development to add some additional volume. But kind of the last line of defense is this big basin. And that's where we're seeing the turbid waters leave. So I was out there today with Anna and Judy, and I do want to preface everything that we're saying tonight. We acknowledge the efforts that's been put in place by the applicant and the contractors. It's definitely appreciated, but we are here again, right? I just want to remind everyone of that. So I was out on the site this morning and two things jumped out to me. The first was a lack of source control. So there's 10 plus acres of disturbed land on this project. It didn't appear to me that a lot of that area is actively being worked, and the general permit requires temporary permanent stabilization after 14 days if you're not working in that area. The second was the lack of storage volume, right? The ponds were full, and I acknowledge the fact we've had a lot of rain last week. So those volumes have been filled up. It's tough to keep up with the dewatering. It's tough to keep up with maintaining that storage volume, but it's something that needs to be dealt with. And one thing that jumped out to me in particular was a lack of dewatering bags. And there's pumps on site. We're recirculating flows within a basin to try to get it to settle out. But there's some simple measures out there that I've seen in the industry, like a dewatering bag, where you just pump the basin out through a dewatering bag so you have clear discharge. You get your volume back very quickly, as opposed to waiting for the solids to settle out on their own over 48, 72 or more hours. So I'll be the first to say, right, a SWIP is intended to minimize, not eliminate discharge of pollutants. So we understand that discharges aren't allowed under the general permit. Our goal here is to try to minimize those discharges from the site. And what I'm seeing out on site is not necessarily the measures required to get us to that minimization. Because if you don't have a source of sediment and you don't have a resulting erosion, you don't have sediment to deal with on the down gradient end. So I think we've brought this up before, and as a commission, and I'll open it up to the other commissioners. I think we all agree that we would like to see more temporary or permanent measures being put in place on stockpiles, on parcels that are not actively being built or have been built and initial grading is complete, whether it's hydroseeding, whether it's mulch, whether it's straw, any number of measures that would be identified in the compliance slip. So I'll stop there. I don't know if Austin or Rich, either of you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, Matt, that's good feedback. I wrote it down. I think we'll relay that to the team. And Rich and I had even talked to the new contractor who's out there now about the use of dewatering bags. I think that's something. I'm fairly confident that's something we're going to be employing. I will acknowledge that the team is being overly conservative about dewatering these basins right now because some of the history that you mentioned. So that's probably working for us in a lot of regards, but also against us in terms of trying to get the volume down in there. So we talked about dewatering bags and using those strategically. Once that stuff settles down just a little bit to get that volume down so we have more volume storage, and then we can start working on the repairs. Like I said, the conservative approach to this is a double-edged sword, but your point about mitigating some of the off-site contributions and putting in temporary or better erosion controls there. I made a note. I'm going to talk to the team about that tomorrow morning. We'll have them pay attention to that. Sorry, Richard, I didn't mean to cut you off, but.
Oh, no, that's fine, Austin. I just wanted to add that after we had met with Austin and the contractor to look at this particular area, I walked the site with the contractor to review the things that he's implemented since he was brought on board about, I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks now. One of the things, part of the issue with this site is, for the handful of lots that are opened up, many of the lots that are open still have the topsoil and duff and everything on them, which helps mitigate the runoff of the subsoil, which has a lot of the fines in it that we're seeing. But for the lots where there's this perimeter drain that extends along much behind the lots, each of the lots in the backyard has a catch basin with in an isolated depression. And the catch basin has an elevated rim with a silt sack in the catch basin inlet. The depressions are lined with stone and or wood chips. We also have silt fence around the top of those. And what the contractor has actually done, part of the reason we have that sediment runoff is because you have water coming from the up gradient woodland that's on the school property that was flowing across the site. And what the contractor has since done is created a diversion swale to intercept that water that's coming off the adjacent property. It comes off the site clean. It flows into these individual depressions where we're isolating watersheds. It flows into those clean, and that's eliminating the cross flow of that surface runoff over the site, which is carrying a lot of that sediment with it. That enables the land in front of the diversion swale to dry out. And now that it has dried out and is drying out, the contractor is going to be able to work that land and get it to the point where it is more stable than it is currently. So I hear you loud and clear. We did talk about implementing dirt bags. Part of the problem is some of the sediment is so fine that it passes right through the dirt bag, just like it passes right through the catch basin silt sacks. So we're trying to eliminate the need to use those to the extent we can. But it is a work in progress. The contractor has been hard at work trying to fix the site, if you will, compared to the condition that it was in previously. So we're all over it. We're open to the commission's input, obviously with yours being a professional engineer. And now that we've got Austin more involved, particularly with this latest unfortunate fail of the pipe, I think we're positioned pretty well. But noted on your comments.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, if nothing else, that you take away, right? Source control, because there's going to be turbid water. Anyone that's worked on a construction site and has seen discharges, turbid water is a reality. the measurement is based on, the suspended solids. It's by weight, right? So these very fine particles that get in water that can create some turbidity, their weight is minimal, their impact is minimal. But the continued, discharge of sediment-laden runoff can become problematic. And if you take nothing else away, Rich, the controls out there today, there's been substantial improvement since I've seen day one, but the source control has been lacking all along. And without the source controls, it's going to be a continuous battle. So we would absolutely urge a focus on source controls primarily, and secondarily, these additional measures.
Got it.
I saw at least 3 or 4 house lots today where the rough site grading appeared to be complete, and it doesn't look like, based on the roughening that was done, any soil has been touched in weeks, if not months, and there's no temporary stabilization measures in place. I get it. Permanent stabilization is going to take some time. You got to bring in your loam. You got to do your hydroseeding. There's steps in the construction process, but to me, it's inexcusable to not have some temporary stabilization measures in there. So I'll open it up to other commission members. I've said plenty.
Matt, through the chair, I think I have some questions. If I got a thumbs up from.
Yes, go ahead,
Yes.
Ted.
So I just got lost in some terminology there, because initially I'm just looking at the map of what we were judged we need to work on. There, it just disappeared. So you're saying you walk back into the lots, Matt. And then I think I heard you say, Rich, that yes, there is plenty of exposed dirt, but we've installed these other measures to prevent water from washing across the dirt. And it seems like right now that's working fairly well. Is that what I understood?
I don't know that I would use the word plenty. There are lots that are exposed as they're being prepared to have the foundations installed and things like that. There are lots where trees have been removed, but the topsoil remains. The topsoil and the duff layer, the organics, that helps absorb the rainwater, so you aren't having the runoff that you do when you have exposed subsoil, which is the layer of soil beneath the topsoil that doesn't have all the organics in it. One of the lots was, I wasn't prepared to talk about lot numbers per se. I'm not sure, Matt, if you noticed, but near the corner of Fitch and Myrtle, let me share my screen and get back into this.
Yeah, if you start talking lot numbers anyways, Rich,
yeah, so
you lose all of us anyway. So
I know. So this lot has been stabilized. That's been hydroseeded. They continued. There's a perimeter drain that was installed up to roughly this location. From here over, this is where additional perimeter drain was installed recently by the new contractor with check dams to direct clean water that's coming off this hillside that had been running across the site and getting into the catch basins in the street here. That's all being intercepted and put into the small depressions, the small basins behind these lots. This lot has been, the pad has been created, it's been stabilized. These 2 lots, the contractor will have those pads completed and stabilized this week is his goal to get that done. We talked about that on Friday. So those 2 will be done. Obviously, these houses are under construction. This one has the rough grading complete. I agree with you, that needs to be stabilized. And one of these over here also has rough grading complete that needs to be stabilized. I will talk with the contractor and Ted after this meeting, and I asked about the stabilization when I was out there on Friday. I will follow up with them and find out what the status of Hydrograss getting over here to do that, what the status of that is.
Okay, so first, Matt, do you agree with the assessment Rich just gave us using the map? Is that roughly what you saw?
Yeah, that's consistent with what I was saying.
So I guess my question then is, Rich, at least my first question, the trench you're talking about, has that been installed instead of doing what we asked you to do? Is that in addition, and it's taken 5 weeks for the new contractor to figure out to put some mulch down or some straw down or something?
Oh, no. The mulch, the stone, and these isolated pockets have been here for a long time. They've been here since they've been there for months.
Okay.
Since each lot is created, that's part of the rough grading associated with each lot is to create these.
All right. So I guess what I'm getting to with regard to the lots is I'm happy we have a new contractor, and I trust that you're right that they know what they're doing versus the other one. Part of knowing what you're doing is don't take 5 weeks and another violation meeting to decide to put some stuff down on those lots furthest to the north that Matt says, and you agree, have not been worked on for weeks. It's just exposed earth. I don't know how much faith I have in the new contractors that 5 weeks into their gig, they haven't fixed that either. And that concerns me. And great, if you guys are talking to them now and they fix it now, that's better than not. But why has it taken another violation meeting to realize that all of this exposed dirt is still exposed, even though we have the new, better contractor on site who's supposed to be better at these things?
Austin, feel free to jump in, but my response to that is that this all takes time. The contractor cannot come into this site and within a week make it correct. There's too much to do.
5 weeks.
I don't know that it's been 5, but maybe it is. I haven't been keeping track of exactly how many weeks the new contractor's been on board. I think it's been more like 3 or 4, but I could be wrong. But he's got this lot done. He's working on these lots. He's created a replacement temporary basin up gradient of the one that's down in the corner here that has a lot more volume and capacity. That takes time to create. That water is being pumped into this basin that's over here. I think he's going as fast as he can. I trust that he's going as fast as he can. I do think we need to get Hydrograss out there for another round of stabilization.
Yeah, I think to that point too, I think, both the points that were made with respect to, we'll call it source control on the lots itself. I think it's a valid point and something that we collectively can be better at. I think with the new contractor coming in, they've been focused on putting in kind of the protections that everything's going to first, because there was an acknowledgement that needed improvement. And so they focused their efforts on improving some of the basins that are collecting this stuff and on the perimeter to make sure that was in good shape. And then we're going to start focusing more on the interior. But the point's not lost. I'm not saying that to be dismissive of it. I think just some context to how they've been focusing their efforts is probably warranted. That said, Rich and I'll be on the phone with everybody tomorrow morning. And bullet number 1 that I have highlighted here in red is source control and more adequate attention being given to the areas on the site that are either not actively being worked or are not intended to be worked for some time. So that'll be a big focus of us. And it's a very good comment.
Okay. And I don't want to belabor it, but I will just say, we specifically asked for that 2 months ago, I think. I can't remember when it was, but that was a specific request to control all that surface level stuff. I remember we were talking about wind was blowing sand around when Melissa went out there. So that's where my frustration comes from. It's not that we said just generally, hey, can you get a control of things? That was a very specific request that we had. If I could jump just again for clarification, I think if we could slide to the map that shows the issues that are immediately at hand in your plan fix. So I have a couple questions here. I was not at the site, nor am I a professional engineer. The guess is the problematic problem is where it says drainage pipe with manhole. Is that true? That's where the water's getting around?
Correct.
And that is a new pipe to this project? That wasn't a pre-existing situation?
Correct. That's a newer, well, I take it back. So there's the structure exists, the pipe that came out of that basin existed, and it connected to the ditch. The pipe was upgraded with the inclusion of the outlet control structure that was put in approximately 5 or 6 months ago.
Okay.
The outlet control structure was put in in an effort to allow Toll and the team to better control the water that was exiting that basin and frankly shut it off. Whereas in its existing condition or its prior condition, it wasn't exactly water in equals water out, but they had far less control over it. So this was done to really use this basin to throttle back and allow them to control the sediment that would be being contributed to the basin.
Okay.
And ultimately, what we've identified with the help of the contractor was the point at which that new pipe connected into the existing manhole, the grout line in there and kind of the ceiling, if you will, of that pipe penetration into the structure, it became compromised. And when it became compromised, it allowed the water to find a path of least resistance, and it pushed through and in turn pulled the dirt with it and created that temporary plug of sediment that pushed through the system.
So I guess my question is, the pipe that comes across Blueberry into basin number 1, was that similarly worked on, upgraded, and should we have concern that that may fail in the same way?
I don't know if that pipe was upgraded offhand. I'd have to go back and look. I think what the intent was is that the connections were made to existing infrastructure, and then that remained.
That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, I think that pipe is existing and stayed that way. And frankly, I don't think that one is of the same concern as the pipe that's in the basin now. And I say that because that pipe serves as the direct conduit from the basin to its ultimate point of discharge and is the thing that's receiving water from the basin. So that thing really needs to be tightened up. When you look down there, you can see how the grout it really was non-existent at that point. For whatever reason, something happened to it. The basin becomes the point, the protection point for the stuff upstream. That pipe at the end needs to be fixed. And what we're going to do too is put an anti-seep collar in there to really reinforce it and really, really discourage and frankly prevent water from even thinking about migrating along that pipe channel.
So the short answer to my question about the pipe across Blueberry is we don't see any real reason to have a similar concern.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you the long answer, but that's
okay. The long answer is fine. I just, for myself and for the thousands of viewers we have on HCAM, I just wanted to try to clarify. Could I just ask Matt, do you agree with their assessment? You are our engineer here. Do you feel happy with that answer?
I do, yeah. The basin discharge characteristics and situation is very different from your typical inline underground stormwater conveyance system.
Okay.
So the fact that they're proposing an anti-seep collar and going into repair that all checks out.
Okay. And then I have one more question or clarification or observation, and I think maybe part of the answer Matt already touched on. I'm again looking at your plan. I'm looking at plug basin 2 with outlet bypass. And what I heard, I think it was you, Austin, explained, but it might have been Rich, is the idea there is to have a spigot we can turn off if we have turbidity to keep that turbid water from entering the stream downstream. Is that true?
That's effectively it. So when you look at this photo here, right, and you can see the side slopes in this basin.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous amount of storage capacity in this basin. It's not functioning that way right now because it historically hasn't needed to.
Wait, for clarification, this is basin number 2 we're looking at right here?
Correct. Yeah, it's at the top of the image we were just looking at previously.
Okay.
So this is the one that's effectively right upstream of the intermittent stream.
Yeah.
And this directs water into the conveyance system in the road, which ultimately goes to the stream. So this is the last line of defense, if you will.
Okay.
And
sorry, go ahead, finish up.
No, go ahead. I'm happy to answer questions as I go.
So I guess my question was going to be, if we're seeing volume being held for too long, but maybe that's only in basin number 1 where we're seeing that. If we turn off the spigot, are we going to overflow these basins? But maybe your answer is we don't have the same volume issue on basin 2 that we have on 1. So we would have room to turn off the spigot?
Correct. So the basin 1 is being used intentionally. We put in that outlet control structure to intentionally allow it to hold more water back and control the outflow better.
Right.
Here,
although you said we might be being a little too careful with that one right now.
We have been overly conservative, I would suggest. And that's to Matt's point. There's opportunities for us to dewater it. We just kind of it's inevitable. The pendulum swings from one side to the other, and it's going to find some equilibrium point in the middle. The idea with this basin and the plug that we're talking about, plus the additional kind of defense mechanisms that we're going to be putting in place, is that it allows the team flexibility with how much water is exiting, right? So you can throttle it up or down depending upon the volume you're seeing, or in the unlikely event that there's turbidity in there, it gives opportunity for them to open and close the door, so to speak, right? And this basin actually has a tremendous amount of storage capacity. The intent isn't for us to all of a sudden go from this little channel that you see with a trickle of water in it to fill it up, 4 or 5 feet, whatever it is. But in the event something's going on, that exists, and now we have the ability to employ it, where that pipe is basically the bottom of the basin, so it's never going to fill up. It's just going to push all the water in and out.
Okay.
Now we have the ability to be flexible with how it functions.
And then let me just check with Matt again. Matt, that sounds all right to you?
Yeah, what I was getting at earlier, Ted, is right. Basin 1, there's no control structure that allowed additional volume for runoff from the project. It's closed off right now, at least as of this morning, so that it's staged up to that higher level discharge.
Okay.
My understanding and how it's intended to be implemented is when that water is less turbid, it's opened up to allow the volume in the basin to draw down. It stays in that drawn down condition until there's a storm event anticipated, at which point it's blocked.
Correct.
So that the storage volume's there to hold back sediment laden water.
Okay.
When it's in its highest position like it is now, and we have back-to-back rain events like we've had this past week, the alternative measure that's available is a pump and a dewatering bag, where you can bring down that storage volume while still discharging clear water.
Okay.
And not just have to open it up and let the floodgates go.
All right. So that satisfies my worry that if we do shut off that valve right near the street drainage, that both pits fill up and back up. It sounds like that's not a concern.
Yeah,
No, that's not the intent.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have concern with that, Ted. This basin is,
This being basin.
I don't know how many feet, but it's quite a ways down gradient from basin 1. And
We
the
estimated
picture
about
doesn't
8 feet.
Yeah, and the picture doesn't do it justice. Standing in this basin this morning, those transitions from the yards down to the bottom of the basin are fairly substantial. So there's a lot of volume, there's a lot of capacity available at basin number 2.
Okay.
The other item that I was talking about as it relates to these coral logs and kind of blocking up this, it's a detention basin, right? The water's leaving right as it's coming in, but it's throttled back when you get a storm event.
Okay.
If we put these coral logs in, it's going to slow the flows down in a non-rain event situation and allow this basin to stage up, which eliminates some of that volume. So what I think is worth considering is whether or not the coral logs are actually necessary versus just having some type of control mechanism at that outlet that can stay in the open position where you maximize your volume when you need it for a storm event, where you can close it and allow more water to stage up and have an opportunity for sediment to settle out. Right. So I would, from my perspective, I would hate to see you fill up volume with base flow here and lose that when you really need it, is kind of the gist of it.
So I'm done, and I took up a lot of airtime. I'm sorry to everybody, other commission members. I have one small request, if there are more. Could we please, for clarity for me and maybe others, refer to them as Basin 2 and Basin 1 so I can follow along on my plan here so I know what we're talking about?
Sure.
It would help me a lot. Instead of saying the one you're looking at here, I haven't been on the site. I don't know what that is. So that would help me if we could use some of the terms that are on the plan.
We should be more creative, but we can do that.
Yeah. Ed or Jim, anything either of you would like to add?
I've been sitting here utterly frustrated that this is a continuing episode And when I see continuing episodes of something like this, I have to think serious questions about the efficacy of the management. And I continue to hear there's a great capacity of basin number 2. We've had rain for multiple days, about 3.5 inches so far this month. We've got rain for the next week and showers and things like that. In terms of storms, if we have, like a 25-year storm, is basin number 2 adequate to hold all that? We talk about this, all kinds of capacity, but we don't have any real measure that I find useful.
So Ed, what I'll share there, and Rich and Austin can certainly chime in terms of compliance with the general permit, you need to have 3,600 cubic feet of storage volume for every acre of disturbed land. So there's a calculation that can be done and should have been done, if not yet, to determine how many temporary sediment traps are needed, how much they're able to rely on basins 1 and 2 to manage construction runoff. So I don't want to get too down into the weeds, but the construction projects are managed in the short term generally, right? So these measures aren't necessarily designed to handle 25, 50, or 100-year storm events. Could they occur during construction? Absolutely, but they're intended to handle as a prescriptive volume. So as long as the contractor's providing that volume, they're compliant with the permit, and that's really what we're looking for, is consistent compliance with the general permit.
Going back to Turkey Ridge, I'm not sure that you were on the commission when we had all the episodes at Turkey Ridge, and yet again, bringing in a new contractor to hopefully clean things up. It is a continuing frustration that goes back to nearly my entire duration in the town of Hopkinton, of watching rain events and projects under construction and seeing what goes downhill. It is beyond comprehension. And I'm going to shut up now because I'm pretty frustrated.
I can certainly understand your frustration, Ed. Jim, going once, going twice. Anything you'd like to add before we move on?
I don't think I can add anything, and I appreciate all the discussion so far.
All right, thank you, Jim. So, a couple of things, we talked about it pretty much ad nauseum at this point. It's good to hear that there's a new contractor on board. I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic that with their engagement on the project and the involvement of the team, we're going to continue to see some progress. But as a commission and responsible for our resource areas, I think we need to take a kind of prove it approach at this point in time. And my suggestion is that we withhold all future building permits until the concerns we've shared tonight have been addressed. So we by no means want to stop work entirely on the project. I don't think we're at a point where we're looking at a cease and desist, but we need to see some substantial improvements by the new contractor before I think as a commission we're comfortable continuing to see this moving forward, given the number of violations that have occurred to date.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
I concur completely. And just to be clear, from my point of view, that means fixing the pipe. That 6 weeks of work was the predicted time. To me, it's not install the check dams. It's fix the root of the problem that just happened before I'm interested in allowing any building to pick up again. The temporary fixes don't satisfy me. A real fix would satisfy me.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, so in terms of action items, Rich and Austin, I know you mentioned you're going to have a meeting with the team tomorrow, which is great that you're taking action immediately. We'd absolutely appreciate that. Temporary permanent stabilization of areas that have been inactive or will continue to be inactive. making sure there's adequate storage volume, whether that's drawing down the basins with dewatering bags, releasing flow through the outlet control structure when it's not sediment laden, and then of course the fix to address on what will be. I know, Austin, you know this, right? If that pipe discharge isn't fixed, that berm's going to continue to erode and become more problematic from a potential health and safety perspective. So I think those are the three items to just lay it out clear for everyone that the commission's looking for moving forward.
And I think it's implied, but what I'm gathering though is generally the commission is in favor of the improvements that we're suggesting tonight. And we're going to get going on that immediately. And Rich and I are going to be communicating with the team tomorrow. I just want to tell them, go and do the things that we talked about. And then as we're progressing on that, I think provided the commission is comfortable with this, we'll continue to communicate that work, timing, schedule, et cetera, through Judy directly. And then she can report to the commission as to what's going on. And if it's appropriate and we need to, we're happy to come back here and provide updates as we're moving through stuff. But does that generally make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And Judy will pass along to the commission as appropriate. And if we feel like we need you and the team to come back and present anything to us in the public forum, then we will go there. But I think at this point in time, working offline with Judy is the appropriate next step. And we'll continue to evaluate the progress as we go. With the ultimate goal of getting to where, I think us as a commission think we should already be in terms of controls on site.
Through the chair, just a couple clarifying questions. So was it your intention for no new building permits to be issued? So they do have some building permits on which they haven't started construction on. So just to clarify what the commission wants to see, is it no new excavation, even on the permits that have already been issued, or no new building permits?
From my perspective, I would say no new building permits, but open to other opinions from the commissioners. I don't think we're at a point of a cease and desist or to stop work on building permits that have already been issued. If we continue to see violations and if there is a lack of action on behalf of the applicant and the team, that may change our opinion. But at this point in time, the more work that can get completed and stabilized, the better off the situation is going to be.
And I might recommend a vote just to make sure that's on the record.
Before you do that, Matt, I have a question.
Yes.
So you say building not issuing additional building permits. What you mean is maybe comparable to what was done in another place, that is not releasing lots for foundations and so forth, like we did up at
yes,
the trails or something like that.
Exactly. So it'd be consistent with what was done with the trails.
Okay, I agree. Thanks.
Would you mind clarifying that, Matt? I had a hard time understanding Jim.
Yeah, Jim was just clarifying that when I say no new building permits, we're basically saying that the town won't issue a building permit that allows work on lots that haven't already been issued building permits, right? We had a similar situation with another development in town, and after a number of violations got to the point where we withheld building permits. So just staying consistent here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with all that said, I will take a roll call on no new building permits, because I don't think we need to have a motion, Judy, right? Is that fair to say? Since this is not necessarily a hearing, this is a discussion. So we'll do a roll call on no new building permits for the development, and that we expect the applicant to continue to keep us updated on progress at the property so we can reevaluate on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, Matt, just a point of clarification on that too is the no new building permits until the improvements that we're talking about tonight are satisfactorily implemented. And by satisfactory, I mean the commission has said that's satisfactory to us, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Assuming no new violations or problems come up.
I'm going to remain optimistic, Ted, that we're not going to have that, but cautiously.
Yeah.
I am at a lower level than cautiously optimistic, but let's hope.
So just
So
for the
now-
record, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I was going to say, you need a motion.
No, I don't think we need a
Right.
motion because it's not a hearing. It's just a discussion. But just for the record, to just show that we're in agreement that this is an appropriate step to take, we'll just do a quick roll call vote. So Jim, I'll start with you.
Yes, aye.
Ed,
It's muted.
Ed, you're muted.
You didn't need to hear all that whining. I will say yes with fear and trepidation.
Well, there's nothing to fear. We're not allowing any new building permits. So, Ted,
That is an I.
and I am an I. Austin and Rich, thank you very much for your presentation and the discussion tonight. We look forward to seeing the progress over the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time. We'll be talking, I'm sure.
Yes, thanks very much. We'll see you soon.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too. Okay. Moving on. Since we are well past 7:15 at this point, we'll jump up to continued hearings. The Bay Path Humane Society Notice of Intent. Judy, would you like to give us a quick update on where we stand?
Sure, through the chair.
Yes.
So we've, since the commission last met, the project did receive a DEP file number. Their only comment was for the applicant to share with them the stormwater report for the project, which they have done. They've addressed Joe's outstanding comments to add the construction entrance, change the terminology from hay bales to straw wattles. They added sequencing on installation of the water line, and I believe everything that Joe had called out has been properly addressed. They also did add a line of PIBs between the gravel drive and the wetland. So that was a request of the commission as well. As far as I'm aware, there are no other outstanding comments. Happy to turn it over to the applicants or Joe if there's anything that I missed there.
Yeah, Joe, do you have anything to add to what Judy just covered?
I do not. I think that pretty much covered it.
Okay, great. Do we have a representative from the applicant on the line still?
I'm on from Bay Path, and I think Chris from our civil engineer. I'm sorry, Scott Jordan, I think.
Yes, Scott Jordan from Ecotech.
Great. Thank you both for sticking it out.
Thanks.
Is there anything either of you would like to add at this time?
I think Judy summarized it. I think we addressed all of the outstanding issues and did receive the file number.
Great. Commission members, any comments?
No.
Anyone in the public have comments? Hearing none. Appreciate that you were able to address all the outstanding comments. I think at this point we are ready to entertain a motion for an issuance of an order of conditions with signatures by Judy or Anna.
I'm happy to make that motion.
I'll second.
Quick roll call vote. Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ted?
That is an I.
And I am an I. All right. Thank you very much for sticking it out.
Thank you.
Liz, I don't know what other meetings or commissions you're supposed to see from this point, but I think my relationship with you with regards to this project now is done after all these years. So
10 years.
congratulations.
No, thank you. Thank you all. This has been very interesting. And thank you all for all you do. I don't know how you guys do it, but I appreciate everyone's support, and I'm sure we'll see people soon, but thank you.
We appreciate that. Best of luck with the project.
Through the
Thank you.
chair, through the chair,
Yes.
in answer
Yes.
to Liz, I try to laugh.
Oh, Ed, you're the best. I know I'll see you soon, I'm sure. So thank you. Thank you guys for everything you do. I appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.
Thank
All right.
you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, keeping it moving. We have 17 Ledgestone Drive, notice of intent, continuation for an addition. Judy, if you would be so kind to provide us another quick summary.
Yep, through the chair. Outstanding items from the last meeting. And again, this is a notice of intent for an addition to a single family home. Commission had asked for stone to be placed at the foundation drain discharge to prevent erosion. So that has been added here with a note. Commission had asked if the foundation drain could be pulled back any amount. So they will be cutting back 3 feet of the foundation drain and adding that stone. PIBs were adjusted. The commission asked for them to be pulled back on the right-hand side to follow the existing lawn. The applicant has added plantings within the 25-foot no disturb zone, which has been maintained as lawn. The planting plan checked out for all native non-cultivar species. And I do have that available to share. And the as needed has been removed from the tree removal note on the plan. And I believe that was all of the outstanding items. Happy to pass it along if anyone has anything on Joe's end or the applicant's end that I missed.
Thank you, Judy. Joe, anything on your end?
Nope, looks good to me.
Do we have representatives from the applicant with us still?
Yes, that's me, Mike Dean from DNL Design Group out of Milford.
Mike, good to see you.
Yeah, same here. Nothing really to add. Those are the 3 action items that came up to the last meeting. Even at last meeting, we addressed most of the issues from Joe as he had just mentioned. So there's not a whole lot to add, really. Everything's been addressed.
Great, appreciate it. Any commission members have comments or thoughts? I see we've got 14 bushes for mitigation, which is more than the 4 to 1 we would typically ask for, so certainly appreciate that.
No, I'm all set. No question.
Anyone from the public with comments? Not hearing any. Would entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions with signatures by Judy or Anna.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. One of us will second.
I think I heard Jim in there. Beat you to the punch, Ed. Sorry.
You got it, man. It's me.
Zach, you haven't clicked that mute button. Gets him every time.
It's like playing a TV game show.
Right? All right. Quick roll call. Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
All right.
Ted?
That is an aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you for addressing those comments. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck with the work.
Yep, have a good night.
You too. Okay. Couple of continued hearings, and we'll jump down to 30 West Main Street, notice of intent, continuation for a single family home. Kick it over to you again, Judy. Yes, Jim.
I need to make a disclosure. We are indirect abutters of this part of this property. I don't feel like I have any conflict, but if the applicant would like me to abstain, I'd be more than happy to do that. But again, we are indirect abutters.
Great. Thank you for disclosing that and clarifying that you can proceed without any bias on the project.
Okay.
Judy, if you don't mind, just a quick summary. It's my understanding we hadn't received anything until the last 24 or 36 hours.
Through the chair, yes, that's right. So this is, again, a notice of intent for construction of a single family home. We received a fairly sizable revised application packet just yesterday. Neither myself nor Joe has had time to review it. So I think the applicant wanted to be available for questions, but as of right now, I don't have any comments as I have not had time to take a look at the materials submitted.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Is anyone from the applicant here with us?
I'm here. So Sam Alfronti from Solely Engineering. I did want to jump on and kind of continue the conversation. I believe one of the commission members was absent at the previous hearing. And I wanted to solicit a few questions regarding some of Joe's comments, just so I have a clear understanding moving forward, and we can hopefully be in a position next meeting to close the hearing. Because I believe we're all of Lucas Environmental's comments have been adequately responded to. I anticipate Joe will have another round of comments or clear them up, but I do have a quick presentation if I could share my screen.
Yeah, that's fine. We're happy to allow you to present any information you'd like to this evening. As a commission, given we just received information yesterday, we haven't had an opportunity to review it, nor have our staff members. So we're not in a position to entertain new information or provide feedback on new information. But to the extent you want to present something and talk about any prior comments or solicit feedback on prior information, we're happy to do so this evening.
Awesome. So I did want to make note that this was given a file number 188-1848. One of the main changes that came about Joe's comments, as well as kind of reevaluating the plans, is we were able to reduce the impact to the riverfront area, as I'm sure staff and the consultant will observe. We reduced it down to about 2,800 square feet. So it goes down from just over 3,500 to 2,800. And largely that's the only resource area that we're impacting. One of Lucas Environmental's comments was in regards to if a waiver was going to be needed, and we did accurately respond to that and clarify that too. I'm going to skip ahead here. So my understanding is the no disturbance zone for a driveway is 10 feet, I believe. Judy, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But 10 feet for disturbance and 15 feet for structures or drives specifically. I think that's the no build zone, if I'm not mistaken. So I did clarify that and respond to Joe's comment he had there, which was, it was shown on the plan. There just wasn't a dimension that accurately portrayed that dimension. The second thing, and these kind of go hand in hand, but one of the comments was in regards to the tree clearing, and I know this came up at the previous filing for this property, but there was kind of a question on how many there's some large trees out there if any of you have walked the site. And the question came up that basically how many are proposed to be cleared with this project. And I was actually on site on Friday, and that was kind of the delay in responding back. But we're estimating about 50 to 55 trees greater than 6-inch DBH are proposed to be cut down. And part of Joe's comment was mitigation and discussing that with the Conservation Commission. So that was one of the things I would like to clarify moving forward, so we can get a landscape plan proposed and kind of hopefully be in agreement prior to proposing that. I would like to avoid the back and forth if we could. And then Secondly, with that is and I know it's been a discussion on some previous agenda items tonight, but the permanent markers. I really want to get an understanding on what the commission's looking for, and kind of where, because this is a kind of a unique property in itself, and development. So it appears in my sense there could be quite a few of them that are needed. I'm not sure if we need them along the driveway, maybe just within the 50-foot buffer. But I would like to hear some commission feedback on those two items, because I think those are the only two kind of outstanding items from Joe's comments, in my eyes, at least. Obviously, if Joe and Judy have additional comments, we will address them then, but.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. In terms of the PIBs, you're right. There are quite a few that are going to be needed given the extent of resource areas and buffer zone on the project. So I think we'd like to see them along the limit of disturbance, with the exception of where, probably right around where Judy's cursor just was, and to plan right. Okay. Where there's the existing building and lawn area. So if Judy, if you can start kind of following, so you can see the existing home.
Yep, that's my cursor.
Oh, sorry, that's your cursor. All right, my apologies. I was blaming Judy for moving the cursor. It was you. If you start on the rear tree line of the existing home, I would think we're going to want to see PIBs along that tree line behind the existing home, wrapping all the way around the proposed limit of disturbance, because really the rest of the property is within jurisdiction. So any future work on the property would need to come back to the commission for review and approval.
Right. And are you guys looking, I heard you mention earlier, I think 40 to 50 feet on center is what you're.
Generally, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Through the chair, I would point out that Riverfront goes through quite a bit of the area within the limit of disturbance, so not sure if the commission wants the PIBs past the Riverfront boundary.
I would be comfortable with the PIBs past the Riverfront boundary, because if we do ultimately issue an order for this project, it would be approving the lawn area within that riverfront. So that would, in my mind, be considered permitted disturbance.
If we approve that plan.
Correct.
Right. It's quite possible that plan doesn't get approved and something else would have to be offered up. I just want to be clear about that.
That is always a possibility.
Okay.
Yes. On the driveway crossing.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a gray area on this particular property, and I'd be remiss not to point it out. In our regulations, there are two types of work that are associated with driveways. One private driveway that has a no disturbance zone of 10 feet and a no build zone of 15 feet. Or multiple concurrent driveways that have a no disturbance zone of 25 feet and a no build zone of 30 feet. Given the characteristics of this property and what's being proposed, I would be of the opinion that you have multiple concurrent driveways, given the existing curb cut being used is a driveway access point to the existing home. So this would be, in my view, a shared driveway and become more than one, and in essence require some relief from the commission for work within that 25-foot no disturb zone.
I discussed this with Judy via email correspondence following our submission, and she appeared to be, and Judy, I don't want to speak for you, but appeared to be in an agreement that this was a single driveway, and it appeared Joe's comment was pertaining to the 15 and 10 buffers as well. So I just, if that is the case, I appreciate clarification. So if a waiver is needed, we can submit such, but I truthfully don't. I don't agree with that because in the portion that is crossing, it is not a shared driveway. It's access to a single family. That in my eyes, the shared driveway would be this extent and potentially the loop that exists. But obviously, the commission's up to their own opinion. I didn't really see if it had a more in-depth definition. I don't think it did.
I don't think it does either, and that's why I kind of prefaced it as it's a bit of a gray area. So I just think it's something us as a commission need to come to a consensus on and make our peace with how we're going to evaluate this particular project. I can see it going either way. Personally, I can see it being viewed as a private driveway for one residence, or I can see it being considered multiple concurrent driveways because it's connecting with a curb cut that provides access to another home. My suggestion would be to provide a brief summary of your stance as to why it would be considered one private driveway that the commission can review and evaluate and come to a consensus on. Because I think that's where we need to start, right? We need to start from a point of understanding what part of our regulations are we applying to this project. And the only gray area I see is the driveway item. I think the footprint of the house and the footprint of the lawn, that's pretty clearly, ties back to the buffer zones for a single family home.
Yeah, and while we're speaking on that, I agree with you, Matt. And while we're speaking on that too, one of Lucas Environmental's comments was pertaining to the square footage of the house. And I just want to be clear that the disturbance in the riverfront area, and Ted mentioned potentially approving of a project of this sort, it's in direct relation to the grading associated with the leaching field. So there's not a single structure proposed in the riverfront area. The clearing and disturbance is in direct relation to the regrading of that area, and it's obviously that's dependent on the soil conditions out there as well as the bedroom count. So reducing the footprint doesn't in turn reduce the leaching field size. It would have to reduce the bedroom count for that to occur. And I think that this is proposed as a 4-bedroom house. It's competitive in the market with listed houses in Hopkinton. So I did want to make that clear too. That was a response in the response letter, but while we're speaking on some of that.
Appreciate that. And forgive me, it's been a little while since I've looked at this package and it's getting late. Your submission included riverfront calcs documenting compliance with the regulations. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, we're
thank you.
2,800 square feet, 1.6% of the total riverfront on site. And we did provide performance compliance with the performance standards in IRS as well as alternative analysis too. I mean, this if we wanted to talk a little bit deeply about it, this site, the way the Hopkinton regulations are written, it's kind of like a limited access project, really. There is a small area of upland and outside the no disturbance zone that is buildable, and the only accessible way is kind of this driveway, which it seems that this kind of stems back to the clarification on the multiple concurrent driveways or private driveway in parentheses 1, and whether a waiver is needed or not.
Yep, I agree, and I would suggest you take your own advice and incorporate that into your summary about how you would like the commission to view the driveway. Whether, and if you're considering it a limited project, rolling that into your evaluation.
Matt, I have a question.
Yes,
the house that's there now will be demolished. Does that affect that driveway issue?
The house will not be demolished.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay. Well, I apologize then. I stand with you. It's absolutely in my mind. I share it.
Yeah, my understanding, and Sam, please correct me if I misspeak here. There's a proposed home. There's an existing home to remain. And there is some type of access agreement in place.
Yeah,
existing lot.
Yeah, so I wasn't involved prior to this filing on this project, but it's my understanding I think a special permit has been issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals to make this basically a buildable lot as the only accessible area, or the only accessible way to this upland or developable area is through the property of 30 West Main, which it's under common ownership, those two properties. So I believe there will be an easement in place if it were to be ever sold or such, but yes.
Thank you. Anything else you're hoping to get points of clarity on tonight based on the original submission materials? Or
no, I think I guess I'd want to circle back to the mitigation, what the commission has seen on similar projects or single family residences that with tree clearing specifically.
This is Ed. That's my question. And I'm curious to know how you and where you can do any mitigation.
So my thought with the clearing, with the proposed driveway, there's going to be about a 7-foot basically shoulder adjacent to the driveway. I think we could certainly line the driveway with some trees, and then we certainly could propose some surrounding the lawn area. Obviously, we're not trying to reforest this area based on the use. I mean, it's still going to be a single family home proposed and with a leaching field and such. But we're certainly open to providing mitigation that the commission's wishing to see. I think with any development, there's some sort of tree clearing. That's kind of the nature of that. So I think a 1-to-1 would be somewhat extreme from a tree standpoint, but if the commission disagrees with me, we could certainly propose that. But like you said, we're trying to minimize disturbance here. So additional trees, we can certainly find some spaces for it. But if you've been out there's it's not a dense forest. There's some really large trees, and then they're kind of, it's sparingly. There's large trees kind of spaced at a decent spacing, I suppose I'll say.
Judy or Anna or Joe, I know Judy, you're relatively new to us still, as am I to the commission. Historically, when we've had a situation where it's been a single family home and there's been tree clearing required within the 100-foot buffer zone, but not in the no build zone, have we required mitigation? I certainly could appreciate mitigation within the no disturb zone, right? For the driveway crossing, whether it's limited project or not. But just trying to get a sense of what we've done historically outside of those no disturb zones.
Yeah, through the chair. I do know at least for the properties on Myrtle and Fitch that are within jurisdiction, the commission asked for a tree survey for numbers, type, size of trees being proposed to be removed in jurisdiction. And the expectation for that development was to maintain the 2-to-1 replacement, but outside of jurisdiction was allowed to meet that. Obviously, that's a little bit different from, one single family home application, but for those individual parcels that were single family homes independently of themselves, that is what was required. I'm not sure if anyone else has other examples.
Through the chair, I don't remember examples other than that most recent one, and I do remember 2-to-1, and I remember having that discussion. I guess as I look at this project, it is almost entirely, the entire thing within jurisdictional area. Whether we call that upland or not, there is a small finger that kind of gets to the edge of the driveway that covers the concrete washabout area. I'm having trouble reading what I see there. And it is a 7,000 square foot lawn. So when I hear we're doing our best to minimize a reduction of trees, I just don't see it. And so I don't see that I would change what we've done before with a 2-to-1 mitigation at all. And if you don't have space for a 2-to-1 mitigation, that's a difficult puzzle for you to find, for you to solve.
If I may respond to that, Judy, was that project you mentioned, was that a subdivision?
Yes, but the commission does require individual notices of intent for each individual property. So it was required as part of the individual applications.
Okay. And if I may, we have
other examples, but
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead, Ted.
We have certainly looked for 2-to-1 mitigation on additions to homes where we've had tree clearing in jurisdictional areas. So that's not even the construction of a full home. That's additions to homes.
Okay, yeah, Judy, if you could provide some of those projects, I just want to make sure that whatever is being reviewed is kind of consistent with how the commission has viewed other applications too. I mean, we can certainly, I don't think we were going to have an issue planting trees. It might look somewhat, it's going to look a little crazy, I think, to have your driveway lined with 50 or so trees, but we certainly can to meet requirements or more. And I will, back to Ted's comment regarding the lawn area. I just want to, Ted, I just want to make it abundantly clear that that lawn area is largely, I mean, you can see it here. There's a large leaching system beneath the lawn. And if we could reduce that a little bit, we would. That's obviously, the leaching system kind of is what it is. And while I do understand this is largely jurisdictional areas, if performance standards are being met in relation to the riverfront, the only other area that is, like I said, I don't believe we need a waiver from the Hopkinton Conservation Commission regulations. So while it's jurisdictional, I agree with you, but to have that stance on it, I would actually disagree with you. Like there is an upland area, whether it's jurisdictional or not, it is very clear out there as well. So I just want to make that clear that there is upland area outside of the 50-foot no build and disturb zones suited for development. So.
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
So the lawn is that size because it's a leaching field for a 4-bedroom house. One of the ways to make the lawn smaller is to make the leaching field smaller, and one of the ways you do that is you make it a fewer bedroom house.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, Ed, you're not wrong. But as I mentioned in the response memo, and you guys will all get a chance to read, I'm hoping, a 4-bedroom house is a competitive new build in Hopkinton. With construction costs to really build less than 4 bedrooms doesn't make financial sense. And that's kind of the predicament we're in here. I do understand that the leaching system's direct correlation to the bedroom count. But I also believe that we do meet performance standards, which you guys can obviously review and comment on. Those were submitted previously, and I don't actually, I think Joe from Lucas Environmental actually agreed with our alternative analysis memo. That was one of his comments. So I do want to make that clear, and that is outlined in the comment letter as well. But we can certainly look at the, I guess, 2-to-1 ratio for mitigation. We can update the site plan to include those permanent markers. And then I think that was pretty much it. Matt, I can provide that memo that has clarification on the private driveway justification, I suppose. But I think that clarifies the questions I had for tonight, at least.
Yeah, thank you. I think that memo will be good for the commissioners to have and for it to be on the record, given the decision we have in front of us. I will say from a project review perspective, as commissioners, our responsibility is ultimately to review and comment and provide a decision on the project that is proposed in front of us. So if the applicant is proposing a 4-bedroom home with a 4-bedroom septic system, we will review that and make a decision on whether or not we want to issue an order with conditions or deny the project as it relates to the Wetlands Protection Act and our local bylaw and regulations. So what I'm hearing from the applicant's representative is this is the project they would like to move forward with. We'll take into consideration all the documentation that's been provided to date, including what you plan on submitting for a memo about the driveway, and look forward to continuing this discussion. One action item that may be worth considering as it relates to the mitigation is doing a tree count, right? That's something that
I did one.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it was 50 to 55 trees. And the reason why I have 55 is I'm hopeful there are going to be some that might be able to be salvaged during construction. But there's 50 to 55 greater than 6-inch DBH that will likely need to be cleared. So that's the number we're going to be, I guess, doing the mitigation off. The higher of the two, I would assume.
Yeah, I think conservatively it'd be good to look at the 55, and then to the extent trees can be saved, if and when this project proceeds, we can reevaluate whether or not full mitigation or a reduction in that mitigation would be needed.
Yeah.
So any commissioners have any final comments before we entertain a motion to continue?
Yeah, this is Ed. When we did Newbury Glen and we asked for a tree count, we asked for species, we asked for diameters, etc., not just a count of how many.
I have in my notebook the DBH of each one that I counted. I wasn't noting species. That's a little bit outside my pay grade. But if it's a requirement, we certainly can. I would like to tonight, if so. I'm not sure. I guess, are you looking for us to replace in-kind species? Is that the goal?
No, well, it depends on what's out there, right? So, I mean, from my perspective, I can appreciate your sentiment of trying to identify trees as an engineer. Not exactly our strong suit. The basic ones, sure, we can get, but you start getting a little into the weeds, no pun intended, it can be challenging. I think at least as a starting point, having a count and the DBH are two really important documentation exercises. Generally, we look for native plantings as a replacement. So, whether you have oaks, maples, evergreens, some invasive species out there, right? Not necessarily going to be a direct correlation to the mitigation plan that we're looking for.
Right.
And if any commissioners feel differently, speak now or forever hold your peace, but that's my sense of it. At least as we initiate the discussion on mitigation. Okay, hearing nothing. Judy, when's our next? Is it June 3rd?
Yes, June 3rd.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue to June 3rd.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Ted. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ed. Quick roll call. Ed? Jim?
Yes, aye.
Ted?
Ted is an aye.
I am an aye.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. We'll be in touch and then see you at your next meeting. Thank you for your time.
Sounds good. The sooner you can submit information, the better. Give us as much time as possible to review and provide feedback.
Will do. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. What else? What else? Okay, so we've got through continued hearings. Jumping back to work session. Do we have anyone here for a 5 Parkwood Drive Revity informal discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Mark Beaudry. I'm a PE here in Massachusetts with Civil Works New England. And we are representing Revity, who's formerly Perkin-Elmer, at this location of 5 Parkwood. And back in 2012 to 2014 or so, I was involved in the project at 5 Parkwood and across the street at 68 Elm for Perkin-Elmer with a different firm. But the architect, Gorman Richardson Lewis of Hopkinton, was kind enough to get me back involved. And I actually am still involved on an annual basis with on this property, doing the annual stormwater inspections for the facility that happens every October. So Judy and Anna are familiar with those and whatnot. So anyway, so what we wanted to do this evening is have a informational meeting with the commission, because there's a couple interesting things going on here, and that I'd be happy to talk about. And Judy or Anna, could I maybe share screen here, and I could pull up a plan that I marked up a little bit that I think shows things a little more clearly.
That would be great.
Okay. Let's see, 1 second. Can you see this plan?
We can.
Excellent. All right.
Some better than others, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's still a little faint in places, but basically this is an existing loading area on the west side of, actually, let me start at another spot, if you will. I'm going to pull up the as-built plan from the original project. So this one right here, you can see Elm Street that runs parallel to Main, obviously. And then Atwood is along the top of the plan. North is oriented to the plan right. And you can see the name of Meridian on this plan is the firm I used to work for. And so 68 Elm is across the Parkwood. Basically, Parkwood runs right down the middle, as you know. And so back in 2012, 2014, the office addition was added at 68 Elm that's got the big, canopy and Revity logo on it and all that stuff. Across the street at 5 Parkwood, the warehouse addition was added back then. And right in this area right here, which was on the backside, if you will, the Atwood Drive side of the existing 5 Parkwood building, is where the work is presently proposed. And let me just zoom in on this plan a little bit. you can, on the other side of Atwood is a wetland. You can see just a little piece of it right there. And then there's wetland out in the back in this location right here. And so what those wetlands do is create, and this plan only shows a 50-foot buffer in the 100-foot buffer. So that B line that's upside down, that one is the 50 foot's upside down labeling. This one is the 100-foot buffer zone line. Okay, so that kind of puts it all in perspective. And when you zoom in a little bit more here, you can see the existing paved area and loading area that is, existed back in 2012 when the expansion project was done and is still there. And so I can also show you, if you don't mind, a few pictures really quick. So that's standing at Atwood, looking kind of to the southeast at the loading area. And the brick part of the building was the original 5 Parkwood. The maroon colored building is the cladding on the warehouse addition. So that's the parking area right now that we're proposing to do the new work in that I can describe in a minute. This is the grassed and pretty thickly vegetated area between the parking and Atwood Drive. That now we're looking at the drainage channel on the west side of Atwood that is pretty well defined, as you can see. And that wetland is what is forming the buffer zone lines into the parking area that you can see off in the distance a little bit alongside the building. So again, this is now looking north along that same channel. That's the very end of the channel where it goes under Atwood and outfalls on the other side into the wetland area. That's another shot of it. This is actually 68 Elm Street, the back corner, that we wanted to also talk with the commission about getting the original certificate of compliance closed out, that we just realized talking with Judy and Anna last week or a couple weeks ago, that had not actually been closed out yet. So we can talk about that in a little bit. So these are all pictures associated with that. Interestingly, some of the wetland flags are still in place, as that I can tell. You can see a lot of the blue flagging, like right there. I think a lot of the old wetland flags are still in place, which is good. Let's see. Whoa. Hold on. Bear with me here. Maybe that might be the last one. And this is looking at the side, looking north along the side of the 5 Parkwood building addition, where the area, you can see the stairs there and the basketball hoop. All of that is shown on the new site plan. All right, that's kind of the quick overview. So let's go back to this plan. All right. So what Revity is needing to do is add basically mechanical equipment. Air handling units would be proposed on those 2 larger concrete pads, and an ERV unit would be on the smaller pad at the closer to Atwood. Now, the pads are proposed to be located in the area, substantially within the area of existing pavement, which you can see that red line right there kind of outlines the edge of existing pavement. And if I zoom in a little bit more, I thought you could see the basketball hoop, but it's just about right there. And there's the existing stairs going into the 5 Parkwood building. So of significance, of course, to the commission is that there's 3 lines here. You can see again the wetland right there. That would be again in the ditch system alongside Atwood. You can see the 50-foot buffer zone line there, the 75-foot, or no touch, and then for commercial properties, and then the 100-foot buffer zone. So a small amount of the work is actually proposed within the 75-foot, but it is within a previously disturbed paved area, as you can see, substantially. Now, one thing after meeting with Judy and Anna on this is that we talked about removing the pavement around the concrete pads in replacing it with a 1.5-inch crushed stone. And so the overall disturbance here is, total, and not just within the buffer zone, but total disturbance is about 2,900 square feet. In the out of that area, I'm guessing about maybe 1,350 is going to be concrete pads, and about 1,550 will be stone. So we actually have a reduction in impervious cover here proposed of 864 square feet. And presently the stormwater flows off of this parking area, goes down into Atwood, and then works its way down into the stormwater swales and whatnot, and eventually goes to the wetland on the north side of Atwood. So I think replacing this with reducing the impervious cover, removing the parking area here, which is important, and replacing it with this equipment, I think is actually going to have a net positive environmental impact. So what we are hoping is that the commission would allow a waiver, some relief from the 75-foot requirement, considering the site is already disturbed and paved in that area. We're going to replace a lot of it with stone and kind of green it up. So that's one thing we wanted to talk about. We talked with GRLA about possibility of moving everything out of the 75-foot. They got their mechanical consultants involved that are on the team, and it just to be able to do that, we would have had to move it to the south or plan left and try to move it closer to the building. But that would have actually resulted in more impervious, or an increase in impervious cover in the overall buffer zone area. So we think in this case it's better to leave it as proposed, and like I said, we'll ask for the relief from the bylaw requirements. So that's something we wanted to talk to the commission about on an informational basis. And secondly, the wetland lines here were delineated back in, for the original project, probably around 2012. So the wetland lines are obviously more than 3 years old. So, but because they're so well defined they were survey located before, they're very well defined. So it's not like they've changed in 10 years. And interestingly, the wetland flags to the north are still in place. So what we'd like to do is respectfully ask the commission that a new delineation would not have to be done, which would require, some wetland delineation, survey work, etc., and which were not carried in the budgeting costs by the architects. So anyway, I just wanted to run that by you and see what your overall thoughts are on that. And so we did talk with Judy and Anna about, maybe we could do a wetlands walkover if you thought that was appropriate, just to make sure that that nothing has changed significantly. And if I could show you just real quick, there is another equipment pad proposed in the backside of the building right there for a new generator, basically a second generator in addition to the existing one. But all of that work is outside the buffer zone area. And this area is fairly steep, so there's no way that wetland line has changed substantially that you could move it, another, 30, 40, 50 feet up the hill to have any kind of issue with that equipment pad. That piece of equipment that's in the right, that the buffer zone line goes through, is an existing air handling unit. So that's not proposed. So anyway, it's kind of a unique situation relative to your bylaw. One other thing that we wanted to talk about was doing a notice of intent versus a request for determination of applicability in knowing that the site is already, paved, and it's actually being improved. I was thinking that there might be a possibility of just, handling this via a RDOA if that would be acceptable to the commission. So that we wanted to run by you folks as well this evening. So
great.
Any questions so far?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the overview and the detail you've shared about this. A couple of questions on my end that'll help support the discussion. You mentioned this is an existing parking lot. How many parking spaces are going to be lost for the addition of the HVAC?
Yeah, I think there are 11 parking spaces in there now, Matt.
So is the plan that this kind of rear area moving forward would just be for the HVAC equipment and access to the loading docks, and no parking would be proposed?
That's correct. They do have a nitrogen tank that's right there. That fence, that'll be put in they're going to enlarge that a bit. That'll be in an existing paved area. And all we wanted to do we kept the pavement line running basically like that. We had to keep it over here because we need access to that stair for egress purposes.
Yeah.
There's 2 loading docks right here. There's an existing trash compactor right here that will stay. This is a entrance door. That's an entrance door. We kept this little hammerhead in here so that, say, a truck coming in to service the nitrogen tank, for example, could back up into there and then go out. So they wouldn't have to ideally back out. Certain smaller vehicles would not have to back out onto Atwood. So anyway, that's why we kept that there. The intent was not to keep those parking spaces. Like it says in our plan, existing parking to be removed, existing parking to be removed. So
yeah,
that's the intent.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had, and you sort of answered part of it, right? That bump out and its purpose. Is it feasible for that smallest piece of HVAC equipment to be shifted plan right to a location where it's entirely within the existing parking lot? So it looks like we're probably talking no more than 5 feet.
Yep. I think we could probably do that. We talked with the mechanical guy today. I'm going to show you one more plan. I think it's this one. Okay. This is something that GRLA put together. You can see that we were already suggesting that ERV unit be moved to the left, and what it did, or I should say, when the air handling unit, the bigger pads, were moved to the left, this piping ductwork got dragged with it, which put it in the middle of the ERV, and the mechanical engineer said that couldn't happen. So that ductwork right there has to come out this end of the unit, and we're not suggesting that the ERV be moved further left. But what they were going to do is try to put some angle, like with some 45 degrees in here or whatever, to get those ductworks connected back to that end right there of the ERV. And if they're going to do that, Matt, I think we could slide the unit even 5 feet back to keep it within the paved area in the 75, and they could just get more creative on the ductwork. I don't think that should be an issue.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's even flipping the unit, right? If you mirror the unit, then you help them too.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
Because I would assume, I don't fill nitrogen tanks, but I would assume more often than not, that vehicle would need to back into this area. to fill the nitrogen tank and not pull in for it and have to reverse out. So it seems like there's some flexibility to move that piece of equipment to the right.
Yeah, there is
And in doing so,
looking at the bollards on the other pads.
yeah,
I think if the I think if we moved the that piece of equipment up tight to the stone edge, like the other ones, I think we'd be fine. So I think we have some flexibility there.
yeah. So to that end, if all of this work within the 75-foot buffer is in the existing paved area, you're not requesting new disturbance. It's just changing impervious cover to a smaller impervious cover with some gravel. So I would view that definitely as a net improvement, in addition to the fact that no more vehicles would be parking at this location. So those two things I would view very positively. And then, certainly, yes, we have a wetland. By definition, it's bookended by some substantial commercial and industrial development. So it's not of the highest value, but nonetheless, we are still expected to protect it. Your question about NOI versus RDA, my sense is if that equipment can shift and stay within the existing footprint and the two larger pieces are within the 100-foot buffer, I could see a path personally where we would suggest doing an RDA as opposed to an NOI, given the net benefit of the project. I'll open it up to other commission members for their thoughts. But an NOI doesn't necessarily seem appropriate for this particular specific case. Yes.
But with those conditions and with that those parameters, I would say, yeah, an RDA I would think would be appropriate filing.
Thanks, Jim. Ed, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I kept looking at this, and I do not have any good way to measure. But as I look at this, and I wonder what would happen if you turned it clockwise 90 degrees? Would that be an improvement? And is there a reason that you can't do that? Maybe there is.
Yeah, the way the ductwork is coming off of the units, and this is feeding equipment on the roof. So there's two ducts that are major ducts. One is coming off of one air handler unit. The other one's coming off another air handler unit. So I think if they were, well, I'm trying to think what they were trying to do, I think, is economize the ductwork. And if it was turned 90 degrees, I think it would add. I think we'd be looking at quite a bit more ductwork here.
Yeah, I'm not trying to complicate anything. I just kept looking at it, thinking, what would happen if you did that?
Yeah, and I know that obviously aesthetics is a concern from the. Now Atwood Drive is private, but it is listed as a street in Hopkinton, so the aesthetics. The view shed coming from Atwood to the building is still an important consideration. So I think the less duct work or whatever and the less equipment that is looked at from Atwood or whatever, I think would be a good thing as far as the town's regulations are concerned. But an interesting idea, though, for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Ted, anything on your mind about this particular?
No, I think you captured, Matt, everything I was thinking.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything that I disagreed with or thought I should add to.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Mark, I think, go ahead.
The reason the other two pads did get pushed 5 feet or so beyond the pavement line was we needed to make sure that we had an acceptable egress route to those stairs around the HVAC equipment and the nitrogen tank.
Understood. So what I'm hearing from fellow commissioners that we're in agreement that an RDA filing would be appropriate, assuming that northernmost or top HVAC equipment can shift into the footprint of the existing pavement, so there's no new disturbance within the 75-foot no disturb. My suggestion would be to include some language in that filing about the need for pedestrian access and egress to the stairs for why the additional impacts in the buffer zone are necessary. And then I will leave it up to you and your client to decide whether or not that RDA filing wants to include the work at the back of the building, just to have documentation that we as a commission have reviewed it and concurred that it doesn't require our approval or review.
I think that's fine. Now, before I forget, what is the commission's feeling on the wetland line?
Through the chair.
Yes, Joe.
I think that wetland line was, those flags are obviously not that old. I think that was delineated back in 2023 for the 86 Elm Street property for some work that was done there. So that may have a valid line delineation. I don't recall the exact findings, the wording of the findings for that project, but that flagging is more recent, I believe. And I don't know what's shown on the plans that were shown today, if that was an original delineation or the flags that were picked up in the field recently.
Interesting. Maybe we can follow up with Judy and see if we can pull that plan out.
That would be great if your RDA plan can reflect the most recent delineation.
Very interesting.
If not, given this specific situation, I think we would be comfortable with the line shown or the more recent line, given how defined that resource is and the fact that the work most proximate to it is going to be within the existing parking lot footprint.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Chair.
Follow up on that.
Yes, Ted.
Didn't we do something recently where we, and I'm going to screw up the terminology, but where we included in the wording of the order that we did not require fresh flagging or delineation? So if those blue flags are legitimate and cover both wetlands that I think were on the plan, including that work to the north, I think it was, again, the plans don't have north at the top. I think we can include wording that says we did not ask for, nor do these plans necessarily represent what is true at the time of this filing, or something like that. Isn't that true?
Yeah. No, we've done something similar to that in the past, right? Where we've reviewed a notice of intent and issued an order and had documentation stating that we weren't confirming the resource areas as part of that order.
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Anna.
So I think typically we use that language on RDAs where Joe is in disagreement with the delineation, or it's an older delineation, but it doesn't affect necessarily, the extent of work within the buffer zone. So I don't typically remember that for NOIs particularly, but more on the RDAs.
Perfect. Thank you. I think I was mixing up the NOI and the RDA, but thank you for clarifying.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. So we talked about the 75 foot. We talked about and I think we still need to formally request in our application, even if it's an RDA, for an exception or waiver or whatever the term you'd like to use for the work in the 75 under this circumstance. And we talked about the wetland, and we talked about NOI versus RDA. We can talk briefly, if you'd like, about the certificate of compliance request, because that I think is in the files there. Judy sent that to me a couple weeks ago, and interestingly, it was addressed to Ron Ekstrom, who's the facilities manager at Revity, who was there at the time, still there. He does a great job. He's real great resource. And it was sent by Don McAdam, who was a administrator at the time. And I was not copied on it. I think it was Don and the contractor. And Ron does not recall seeing it, and I had not seen it before until Judy sent it a couple weeks ago. So we've been talking about that, and I'm happy to kind of go over those three remaining points and what had been asked of us because of so much time had gone by. I mean, one thing we did as the engineer of record at the time was prepare the as-built plan and submitted that. So that is on record. And it was really just a couple things. I think Don McAdam had done probably a site walk and a couple things that he noticed and put into that letter that he wanted to have addressed at the time. And I think honestly it didn't really go anywhere. And it was so now we'd obviously want to get that order conditions closed out. And so maybe we can talk about that. And we had been asked to by Judy and Anna to submit a new request for COC Form 8, I think it is, to just to get it all refreshed and new. So anyway, and get new eyes on it. So we are certainly happy and willing to do that. And I could talk about real quick about the 3 points that were in that memo from Don, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think if they're brief, then we can chat about them. But I would concur with Judy and Anna's recommendation of filing a new request for a COC so we can kick that process off again.
Yep. So I pulled up the as-built plan again, and right at the end of Atwood Drive, right in that area there, let me zoom in a little bit again. Apparently there had been some landscape debris mostly from lawn cutting, frankly, that the landscape contractor had been dumping down into this area right here. I think it was a convenient spot for it. And we did notice the other day that there was still some material in there, and we're not sure from, Ron wasn't sure if that was something from, Revity's lawns or not. There's a lot happening here along Atwood. And, but he had his landscape contractor go in there and remove the grass clippings out of there. They kind of raked it out and actually put a bunch of grass seed in there. So it was, they definitely have, are paying some attention to it in whether they were responsible or not. And I think Don had seen that back, in 2014 when he did his site inspection. He was probably walking around the building and saw that area right down there. So anyway, but Revity has taken care of that. The other area was right in here. This is again at the corner of the back corner of 68 Elm, which is the Revity's office building. And if you go into the down Parkwood and turn right into the driveway, this is the new parking lot that was built as part of the office project. This is one of the stormwater basins actually that we do the observation of every fall, and the other one's right here. And there are, 30 catch basins on the property. There's like 10 storm scepter units, and I personally get eyes on all those. And they've done, Ron and his people have done a great job as far as maintaining this stuff. And every now and then, I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but I just, they're very good, diligent people out here. And what I'll do is let Ron know one catch basin is, got only 40% capacity left, and he'll send their contractor out there to pump out that catch basin to get it down so that we can submit a clean report to the town. That's how much they care about doing the right thing out here. So anyways, so the other item, as I said, was it looked like there might have been some grading Don indicated down in this area. Now, there were a couple trees that were planted as far as the project that was done, 12, 13 years ago, right in this area right here. And there might have been a little bit of work done around those trees, obviously, but none of us seemed to think there was any grading happening down in this area. And unfortunately, we didn't have, you can see on this plan, there was no topographic work done in that area. Actually, there might be one contour right here, another one up here. So it would be kind of hard to tell, frankly, how that area compared, as it was built in 2014 to what it looked like before the project. And frankly, right now it's vegetated, it's stable. I think at this point, and I'd be happy to go out there and have a look at it with Judy and Anna, but I think at this point it's frankly better left as is. And there was a little bit of landscape debris I saw in this area right here along the side of the parking area that has been cleaned out of there. So anyway, this was item number 3, I think. Item number 2 was the end of Atwood. And I just mentioned to you a few minutes ago, the 2 stormwater basins. I think Don had mentioned that, I think it was the berms and whatnot have been, weren't, fully vegetated yet. There was, they hadn't gone through a couple growing seasons, et cetera. So he wanted to make sure that those areas were well vegetated and stable before issuing the certificate of compliance. But interestingly, they were stable enough that he okayed removing all the erosion control barriers. So, which were done. I mean, we all hate going to a construction site 10 years later and still seeing erosion control barriers out there, especially silt fence. So
we sure do. We sure do. No, I think it sounds like you're in a good spot to file a new request. So definitely suggest that as a next action, and we'll review that filing and proceed accordingly.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I would hope that they're kind of anxious to move this equipment forward. And I would hope that we could be working on getting the COC closed out while we're processing the new application, which I'm hearing will be a RDOA, which is great, which we really appreciate. So anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to entertain both of those requests concurrently.
Yeah, no new as-built is needed. It's really just kind of looking at it, checking off the boxes.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming to chat with us tonight.
All right. So we will be, I'm not sure that we can, we're trying to get, we were really pushing to get an application in tomorrow, but I think it's probably going to be a couple weeks because we're still waiting for our butters list and stuff. So, but you're going to be seeing this really soon. I would say probably the 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds like we'll see you in June.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Okay. We're close to wrapping up here.
And by the way, thank you, Judy and Anna, who have been great to work with. I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to add that on closing.
Yes, they are spectacular. So we always appreciate when applicants acknowledge that.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
I don't believe we have any public forum requests, but Judy, I think there was one more topic we wanted to discuss this evening.
Yes, through the chair, I'll be quick, I promise. So we did get a request from Seiler Climate Consulting. They've been working with Julia Chun, who's our sustainability program manager, on sort of a townwide bylaw review for climate resilience in our bylaws. So they did review the wetlands protection bylaw and came up with some findings and recommendations on ways the commission might consider beefing up or including climate resilience in additional ways. They had initially requested to come to a board meeting in June, but we're asking for about 45 minutes to an hour. So we weren't sure if a board meeting was the best platform, since we do go late. So just wanted to check with the commission on if you would prefer that to occur within a board meeting, or we can set up a separate public meeting, advertise it the same and just have that be the sole topic for discussion. And that can be at a time that works for you all. We can set up a doodle poll. So just wanted to get an idea of what your preference might be on that.
Thank you, Judy. I know my preference undoubtedly is a special meeting. We do a doodle, figure out when all or most of commission members can be in attendance and keep it separate from a typical Tuesday evening. Ted, Ed, or Jim, thoughts?
I agree completely.
Yeah, me too.
My only possible comment would be if by some miracle we had a Tuesday with nothing happening, that would be perfect.
Yes, that would be
Count on
perfect. But it hasn't presented that way for as long as I've been around, and probably as long as anyone else has been around. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a Tuesday night where we don't have a meeting. I think this can be pretty flexible in terms of date, time, and obviously location virtually is going to be most convenient for everyone. It sounds like everyone's in agreement. So Judy or Anna, if either of you would like to just send out a doodle with a bunch of date and time options over the next few weeks, I think it would be great if Melissa's able to attend that, if she's filling up for it. So if we need to wait an extra week or two for her to be comfortable enough to join us, I think there's a lot of benefit in that happening because this doesn't seem like it's a time sensitive discussion.
Yeah, they were shooting for some time in June, so hopefully that gives us a little bit more time. But yeah, I can send that around.
Okay, great. All right, we made it.
Nice job, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, I tried my best to fill the big shoes that Melissa wears as the chair. So hopefully it didn't go too poorly.
Well done. Well done.
Matt, you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it.
I assume you're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, if no one has anything else, I will happily accept the motion to adjourn.
Well, hearing nothing, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Beach Ed.
Quick roll call, Ed.
Oh, Ed. Mute button.
That mute button gets him. We're gonna work on that trigger finger.
He's still struggling. Oh, Ed.
We'll give him a moment. Jim.
Yeah. Aye.
Ted.
Ted is an aye.
Ed, I'm gonna come back to you. One more. I'll take a thumbs up since we're on video and recording.
We don't actually need. Well, we do because he makes a quorum.
We do need a quorum. Yeah. We'll be here all night.
Buster, we'll be here all night.
What are you doing, Ed?
I will entertain a thumbs up that you are in favor of adjourning. Can we get a thumbs up?
Can you give us this, Ed?
Can we get one of these?
I don't know if he can hear us either anymore.
Did he even drop off, did he?
No, he's right there.
He's there.
Well, we can see his mouth moving.
Do a chat.
Look at this, Ed.
We just need a thumbs up, Ed.
There we go.
Because you are in agreement to adjourn. And I am an aye.
Oh, God.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll let you do.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.